see for Rogue versus Misfits Gaming, a rematch from the spring playoffs, but this one, it hits a bit different. This is a matchup between two teams fighting to make it to the top, a preview of what's to come on the road to Worlds, possibly, but we have a big change for Misfits, which is going to define a lot of this game. They have Kobbe and DOS in the bot lane up versus Hansama and VandeR, and there's just so much history between these two, but also individually, because they have very different paths, but they're still chasing glory.
Sjokz, I have very strong feelings on this matchup, and I'm going to preface this for everyone watching at home. I think both of these bot laners have years of unfulfilled promises that they just have not lived up to. Don't get me wrong, Hansama and Kobbe are fantastic bot laners. They're the second wave of bot laners to come into the league after the likes of Rek'Sai, Febiven, the golden oldies who set the standard. But you know who was also a second wave bot laner that came in that is better, more consistent, more regular than these guys? It was the likes of Sven. When you look at these players, they are 1 of 10 bot laners in the league. They are already fantastic players. Frankly speaking, everybody in the LEC is. How do you define who is the best within the LEC? It is consistently delivering in high-impact games and beating whoever's at the top of the table. We've seen Kobbe, we've seen Hansama step up. They haven't won things for me. They've shown up on international stages. They have advanced far, but I haven't seen the consistency, and I haven't seen it against the best in EU at the time, and that's what I want to see this split.
Okay, Trevor, but Kobbe's over here, like, was 2019 a joke to you? Because in the spring split, he got the first All-Pro ADC in the league. That's saying something. That's saying he's better than the other bot laners down there. And while, yes, other people have eclipsed him at times, he also made the quarterfinals at Worlds, so I don't think Kobbe really has much of anything left to prove other than lifting a title, but that's a team game. Not one man can do that.
To me, what that proves is that we have short memories because there are so many great and incredible performances from bot laners year after year. So it really doesn't matter that he was good in 2019. We need to see that consistency now again that he's back on European soil, and we saw a glimpse yesterday.
Okay, pause though, because Kobbe has always been the consistent AD carry. He's always consistently good.
Yes.
Exactly. And then in 2019, he was actually great and got the praise he deserved. So I have no doubts that he's still at the top of his game.
I'm not doubting. He's still the 3rd or 4th best AD in the region. And in 2019, he lost to a first-time bot laner, former mid laner Perks. Now, I just want to say, when you have exceptional players, your expectations for them are higher than anybody else. Right? I am holding these guys to the gold standard, not the bronze standard, not the 4th standard, not the make playoff standard. I want to see Hansama or Kobbe lift the trophy and perform in a final, and that's where I want to see the consistency and the high.
Well, I hope they don't have to play against G2.
Well, I love the fire, right? And that's also what we heard from Kobbe yesterday. He also said in the video, I came back here to play against the best again. Little cheeky remark there. And then let's look at Hansama, because a similar story, but a bit different. He's been a constant here for a long time, and he has great memories from a couple years back at Worlds, even the highest stage. But you're right, we want to see him with Rogue push farther.
And yesterday, he was on top of his game. I saw like the flash over the wall in the bot lane to get the assassinations. It was great to see from him really stepping up to be sort of like the main focal point in this team composition in the late game. And in a meta that's going later, it is going to be about all these ADCs. And it was almost a little interesting to see how these players differentiated their styles just a little bit. Because it was Hansama, you know, the guy we know for playing Draven in the bot lane and dumpstering you, that was going the scaling route. While Kobbe, in his first game back, said, first pick me Callista, and is trying to dominate lane versus Reckless.
What I absolutely love, though, is even though he's on that scaling Aphelios, we just saw the clip, still flashing over the wall, chasing the kill. I'm excited to see what the draft is going to do today, because I think both of these players have shown at different times they can play aggro in lane, they can play full late game. They are exceptionally good players. And Sjokz, you started this pre-match by saying this could be a taste of what is to come. These are two teams that made it to playoffs that have impressed this year already, and expectations are high for how they're going to perform the entire split.
Yeah, I think that's great. If you look at a litmus test, these are the kind of teams you want to be close to and you want to be able to beat, because you're expecting to fight against them for that world spot and 4 high spots in the playoffs. Now, let's look at what we've seen so far. Misfits yesterday toe-to-toe with Fnatic. Unfortunate ending. Rogue convincing win as well. But stylistically, it did hit a little different because Misfits were notably much more aggressive in their game.
Yeah, Misfits were definitely trying to play through bot lane early on and try to explode the game in the mid game, and that went well for them for 35 minutes until it wasn't for them. So I think this matchup is going to be incredibly close, but I have faith that Misfits can pull it away, especially if they continue to invest in Kobbe.
I completely agree. I think if Misfits play as aggressive as they did yesterday, they beat Rogue.
All right, let's see. The bot lane matchup is a tale of long roads towards glory as Rogue and Misfits face off in Game 2.
Thank you very much, Sjokz. Bot lane is definitely going to be somewhere my eyes will be drawn to, but we have to see what the teams draft around it, because of course you could look towards some of the other players in this game. Febiven, Larssen, two very strong mid laners who can carry a game, or just off their own back.
So at the end of last split, I almost put Febiven 2, Larssen 3 in terms of my all-pro mid.
And number 1 was obviously Nuke Duck.
Number 1 was Perks.
Okay.
But I think that while I didn't put Larssen third, I genuinely think that Larssen had a phenomenal split.
Yeah.
And he was someone that I think actually saved Rogue in a lot of games that they almost threw away. So if we're in the conversation about could Febiven potentially be the second best mid laner at the end of the split, Larssen is also someone that I have my eyes on, like, where's he going to fall at the end of the split? How will he and Rogue progress? Because I genuinely do think that he is incredibly talented. But unfortunately, right now, the current meta isn't really about mid laners. Usually it's Azir, Syndra, LeBlanc, and some Zoe. And while they can have good performances, by all means, a lot of the early game focus doesn't usually go in that direction. But we'll have to wait and see what direction this game does take us. Because, of course, when we go to the bans, it feels like supports and AD carries are the go-to remove them, get them off. Already in the day, in our first game of the day, rather, we saw a Thresh banned away, we saw a Yuumi banned away, we saw a Lulu. So will these same champions be taken off the board is my first question.
Well, so far, no. Varus is removed, Set is removed, but I totally agree. I think Thresh is just an incredibly powerful support at the moment. Syndra taken away.
But that's a blue side Syndra ban, which is pretty surprising because she is very potent as a first pick because of her ability to flex between mid and bot lane. And I think that even with her nerfs to her E, she's still very strong. So something to keep track of as the split progresses, depending on the state of Syndra, because if Rogue can't play her, that is definitely going to hamper their ability later on down the line. But in any case, she'll be taken off the board alongside Yuumi. Rogue first pick right now, kind of looking like an Aphelios or a Thresh. If I know Hans Sama, he will likely want to get his hands on the Aphelios as quickly as possible. Kalista is another champion you have to take into consideration. Could be a first priority. With Misfits, yeah, I think that's a smart ban from Misfits. And of course, as we expect from Rogue, the immediate lock-in of the Aphelios. So now, with Graves still up and available, with things like Thresh up and available, I'd love to see a Thresh lock-in. Right now for Misfits, maybe they're not super comfortable with Thresh Ezreal, which is what you're thinking.
Yeah. I think Thresh Ezreal is fine here, though, because I wouldn't want to pick Graves this early, just in case you get the Nidalee pick, because you see a lot of people picking Nidalee into Graves, and some people regard it as a counter pick, some people regard it as a skill matchup, of course, so we'll see what Misfits decide to do here. The Ezreal is the first lock. Thresh just makes the most sense to me. He's very powerful. Doss has shown us yesterday that he's really good at supports that can engage. He was playing Nautilus yesterday, hit some really strong hooks, so I'd love to see Thresh home.
We're just kind of waiting now, Medic.
Yeah, also, like, whenever something takes this long, you're debating, are they thinking about future picks, or are they really thinking about what we want to pick here? So what Karma does is give you a little bit more push in the lane. You can keep the Aphelios
but you gave Thresh over.
You did give Thresh over. I was going to get to that point afterwards, Vedius. Yeah, so it gives you a little bit more push in the lane. You should always have priority down there, but you give the power and the safety of Aphelios Thresh over to Rogue, alongside Larssen's Orianna, which he is known for throughout the course of his career.
So Febiven could do LeBlanc here if you wanted to. I think Orianna versus LeBlanc is an interesting skill matchup, but I think that LeBlanc, because of her great setup, especially with early game junglers, is very strong. Okay, we're gonna go for Azir, fine. I mean, I don't know why I'm surprised. I was just hoping for maybe a little LeBlanc, maybe, you know. But no, Azir Ezreal is what we're gonna be getting. I think it is, of course, one of the strongest setups in the current meta that we do have. Already you can see from Misfits, strong poke, strong disengage, a lot of mobility already coming out from their side. Whereas Rogue shifting a little bit more towards that team fight style of approach, you know, with the, of course, both very team fight, just in very different ways.
Yep.
You have a lot of area of effect damage from the side of Rogue with the Aphelios ultimate and the Orianna ultimate, whereas for Misfits, they want to try and keep their opponents at arm's length. They want to poke at them, they want to try and use their mobility to hit those crucial targets around those very big objectives. So we'll have to wait and see as things progress. We're still missing junglers and top laners for both sides. Misfits will be able to get the counter pick for at the very least one of them. And with really a lot still left up and available.
Yeah.
Kind of the world's your oyster here for both these teams.
You could go down a more aggressive routes, things like the Gragas, the Renekton available. You could go for an Aatrox if you want just something safe that can work well in team fights.
We do know that Dan is a big Gangplank player, so he could think about that.
And that also gives you some strong disengage to go alongside your poke, right? You put that cannon barrage down, people are going to get slowed up. It's very easy then to land a few Mystic shots to land a few soldiers from the Azir.
Okay, Wukong being banned off the board. So the only thing I think Misfits are missing right now is engage.
Yeah.
They could think about a Jarvan if they wanted to. I think it would act as something that does provide a little bit of early pressure, but I think Jarvan also scales well in terms of being a frontline and also just against Orianna, Aphelios, I love Jarvan because if the flash is ever down, they're stuck there.
Yep.
And it's very easy to engage on top of them. So, yeah, it looks like Misfits is kind of in my line of thinking,
Nice
so they're
stuff,
going to
Vedi.
lock that one in. Now, for Rogue, as a response to this, they have to blind pick something safe. Do they look to try and take away one of Misfits' blind picks in the form of the Gangplank? Or do they go for something a little bit... Something like a Maokai could also be very safe. There is the risk of a Cho'Gath then coming out from Misfits, which is something that Rogue could be afraid of. So it kind of depends on what direction they want to take their composition.
Well, they're going to grab the Gangplank for themselves right now, and now we're looking towards that jungle pick last.
Well, there aren't that many left. There's Olaf, but Olaf, I think, really struggles against this much disengage and range. You could consider Rek'Sai. I think... but because there aren't that many other scaling junglers, it's like maybe you go Kindred, but it's kind of meh. Your engage is a little weak, but like what other jungle options do you really have? Maybe you go Zac, but then you're doubling down on the scaling, so... I think that their options were a little limited in terms of what jungle pool they could go for. What I do like about the Rek'Sai is I think that it gives you strong setup for a bot lane play. Because while you do have strong ganks, you are on blue side. Remember the blue side Rek'Sai has that really unique gank path where you can come in from behind, go over the wall, set up for that crazy play with the Gangplank ultimate as well. It's very easy to attack the bot lane with a Thresh there. So when you think about all these things, and the Rek'Sai makes a little bit more sense, especially with the amount of champions that they have at their disposal. And Misfits going to answer finally with the counter pick of the Vladimir into the Gangplank. Early on, the Vladimir does struggle.
Yeah, you just get poked out.
But it's usually not enough to get killed, which means that you, for all intents and purposes, get a free lane for the Vladimir to scale up, and then you have a lot more teamfight value in. Dan is known for his Vladimir. He's played a lot of it over the last, or since he's been in the league, and I think that he's very prominent on it and is one of his more successful champions. So, gonna be exciting to see. Strong team fighting on both sides. Obviously, the team fights will play out a little bit differently, but this is the meta that we've come to expect as of the last few days.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense the way it's worked. I was just trying to remember who the Klepto Vladimir player was at Worlds last year. It's playing for Damwon.
Noguri?
Noguri, yeah, because he used to go Carl Klepto into the Gangplank matchup just to scale up and get as much gold as possible. We'll see what happens in this game as Misfits take on Rogue. And onto the rift we go, Rogue. They're doing something, Vedi. They are doing something here. Pushing down towards the bottom lane, looking to see perhaps if they can get a ward in. DOS!
Oh no.
Oh no! Oh dearie me, DOS. Blue screen of death for him as Rogue get first blood.
Okay, so we saw this play from SK yesterday where you basically tried to get to the lane very early on to get a deep ward so that you can get information as to what the enemy bot lane is doing. This can allow you to do a lot as Ezreal screams.
He's so angry at his support.
Is he angry or upset? Who knows, really? Who really knows? In any case, definitely bad for Misfits early game. First blood going over to Larssen means that he will be able to pick himself up another Doran's ring. But the idea behind this early ward is to basically just give you information. What's the enemy bot lane up to? What are they doing? Can they get that early push? And then you can see that DOS was trying to do a similar thing, but he was doing it solo, and he was a little bit later than the rest of Rogue, so he ended up getting punished for it. So hopefully this is a lesson for DOS to learn from the future. We can see that Inspired is going to do a solo red, Jarvan is going to do a solo blue, and already Gangplank looking to exert his pressure over the top lane 1 versus 1. You can see that bot lane, you expect the push to typically be in favor of the Karma and the Ezreal, especially seeing as they got to lane first, and they do have that strong wave clear. Mid lane is a really interesting one for me. I love good Orianna players, and I think that Larssen is definitely someone that I would consider a good Orianna player, but it's one of those champions where unless you're good at the champion, you can't really fully utilize how dominant she can be in the laning phase, because one of the things about her Q is in order to harass with the Q, you actually have to be quite close in range, right? And this gives Azir a pretty strong opportunity to actually trade back with the Sand Soldiers. So early on during the laning phase, what you can see is this situation where when Larssen tries to harass, you actually end up getting bullied back by Febiven. But the trick on Orianna is to not be afraid of going for those extended trades, because your auto attacks do a lot of bonus magic damage. That's the advantage of a passive, right? And so if you're willing to go for these extended trades, proc your phase rush, you can actually quite easily go in, get the harassment, and then you can run away from minion aggro and actually avoid a lot of that as a flash comes in from VandeR.
VandeR looking for the flash play. Dos didn't flash away from the hook, and now is just dead. 3 minutes in, he's died twice. Hans Summer is the unlucky recipient of that goal.
So while we were talking about the mid lane, Rogue were already setting up for a bot lane play. And we talked about this in the draft, how Aphelios and Thresh is a pretty easy lane to play around, and Rek'Sai is a champion that can enable them during the early stages of play. They wanted to attack the Karma, they've done a great job, and Dos deciding not to sacrifice his flash, recognizing that maybe it wasn't worth it anyway, and he was likely going to die regardless.
Yeah. Always a struggle when you lose out early on like that as a support, because you lose pressure in the lane. Your AD carry is going to find it harder to farm, and now we're going to see both the junglers group around the mid lane. Larssen knocked up here. Febiven's going to flash away. Larssen flashes off towards the top side as well, but that red buff is ticking. Razork will fall though, and Larssen just heals up enough to survive. Rogue in a very good spot early on in this game. We're only 4 minutes in, Vedi, and they have 1,300 gold lead.
Yeah, beautiful counter gank coming out from Inspired. Right place, right time there. I'm not sure if he was expecting it. I think Inspired's game plan was just, I'm going to cover. It looks like that Larssen wants to push out, maybe go for an early reset. So I just want to be around just in case. And Razork was there to try and attack that motion. A very common play we see from Razork, wanted to try and invest into ganking for his mid lane. And again, Inspired, it's not like, okay, for sure something's going to happen, I just want to be here just in case. And the timing was perfect. He knocks up Razork because Febiven flashes away, he runs out of mana. Razork tries to go for that last hit, but isn't quite in range. The only good news out of this is that Larssen didn't get the double buff, because if he had, this laning phase would have been very one-sided.
He is going to get a blue buff though.
Oh, yeah.
And has a Tear of the Goddess already.
I hope Ender's watching this, because this is how you treat your mid laners. Yes. Yes. Oh, level 5 blue buff. I can hear the mid laners on stream right now. They're an elation. To be able to get that, to have unlimited mana, especially when you're stacking a tier. Oh, it feels so good.
Razork is now looking up towards the top lane, hoping that this gank goes better than his previous. Finn, no mana, has pushed up quite far. Razork, oh, you're going to walk in. VandeR's going to try and stop this back. Has the Tides of Blood, no vision in the bush, and there we go. Tides of Blood in. Finn now trying to run away, puts down a barrel, but doesn't really have anywhere to go. They're waiting to see if they can get the flash out, but one more auto is enough. Dan with the first kill for Misfits.
Yeah, so I like the path that Razork took there to avoid all the vision. Didn't get spotted out by the Scuttle Crab in mid, doesn't get spotted out by the Tri-Bush Ward either, is able to sneak in. Finn thinks he's safe and can just go for an easy base there to then TP back in and reset the wave, but he ends up getting punished. So finally, Misfits get back on the board, but Rogue, they're not slowing down either. They recognize jungler's top side. They can go in, steal away the Drake. Very little that Misfits can do about it. And they're sitting pretty right now. They haven't built a massive CS advantage in the bot lane 2v2, respect to Kobbe for being able to hold his own. And you can see that Rogue have actually set up a pretty nice freeze here. And the bot is actually, no, I stand corrected. That's going to push slightly towards Misfits. But in any case, yeah, I think that Rogue has set themselves up pretty good in the early game, considering that they are sitting at 3-1.
In a really good position. I mean, if I could be 3-1 up at 6 minutes, I'd be very happy. In the majority of my games, you've got a BF sword now complete on Hans Summer. Kobbe actually going towards the Sheen first. We have seen a little bit of variation in AD carries, especially on the Ezreal. Sometimes you go pickaxe, sometimes you get the Tear, sometimes you get the Sheen. Just depending on how you're really expecting to play the lane. Kobbe here hoping to hit more Mystic shots than use his auto attacks, and so Sheen works out for you.
Also just very powerful in terms of early item.
Oh, yeah.
Very strong dueling tool. Razork will, of course, be spotted out on this ward. if you have a look quickly over at the top lane, you'll notice that Finn is being very aggressive. He has a huge wave stacking up. And this is one of those situations where Medic, you asked me last game, could you make this top lane dive a possibility? Well, this is a situation where you could think about it. But because it's Vladimir, it's always very dangerous. And you've also got to take into consideration where the enemy jungler started. Now, Misfits weren't, Rogue weren't sure if Razork started on blue or red. That's why Inspired is now moving over to the red buff to be like, where the hell is the enemy jungler? Oh, I found him, he's red buff. There's no way we can even consider this dive. So I'm just gonna be here, cover you, make sure that you're nice, safe, and healthy, as Inspired actually wants to get a little bit aggressive here.
Yeah, it's been a little bit frisky with Razork. He's put that ward in the Krugs to make sure that they know exactly where the jungler is. Now he's going to back away, but just makes his presence known and makes Razork have to spend a little bit more time clearing out this jungle than perhaps he would like.
Really like this deep vision that we're seeing from Rogue as well. You can see this ward on the Krugs. There was, of course, a ward on the Raptors too, and this control ward just sitting on this entrance. So the whole top side is covered from the side of Rogue, or at least enough information for Finn and Larssen to be playing pretty safe. And this then better enables Inspired to try and play through the bot side of the map. You can see all of his bot camps are available. He's likely going to be pathing in that direction with the dragon spawning about 2.5 minutes. That's likely going to be his early focus.
Razork, I believe, was spotted on a ward there once again, just sitting on the Krugs. You can see Inspired coming across, looking for that Rift Herald, but Razork has spent a lot of time on the top side of the map. His blue buff is up if he wants to work his way down towards it, but the vision control from Rogue has been, well, paramount to their ability to keep this locked in position. I was wondering where the Rift Herald was. Just marches his way back, waddles back into the pit. Razork is happy enough with that, but he's going to go back towards it. Is he going to start this one up? Inspired knows he's there. He's seen him on the Tremor Sense. The reset has come out from Larssen, so he's not going to be here at all, but I don't think Razork wants to risk taking the fight. Perhaps he does.
Medic's brain like, does he or doesn't he?
His brain is like, does he or doesn't he? He keeps walking back and forth.
The thing you always have to look is the map state, right? So bot lane can't TP. But you can see that Thresh is already rotating up. The health of the Rift Herald is very low. Rogue obviously want to contest this.
Cannon Barrage comes down. There's the Hemoplague as well on Inspired, but the Smite comes down and it's Rogue to secure it. They might look for more of a fight here. Finn's going to heal himself up with the oranges, but Inspired walks away, wins the Smite, and takes the Herald.
So that was basically a gamble from Misfits because the wave states were a little weird. They didn't have a clear push in top, which meant the Dan wasn't immediately there. Mid was actually fairly neutral, and neither bot lane had rotated up either, which basically means that it was straight up 50-50, and that play could have gone either way. The biggest difference was that Rogue had stronger itemization because they have the early game advantage. So if a fight had actually occurred, Misfits were more likely to lose it, which is why I think Misfits wanted to just kind of be like, ooh, I'm just gonna smite this away and then leave, and then they're actually like, okay, nope, never mind, we can't fight this, and so they give away the Rift Herald. So it's not the end of the world because it's an objective that Misfits were likely going to lose anyway, so they put it into a situation where, oh, maybe we can actually get it for ourselves. Okay, we didn't, unlucky.
Just hope they don't do the same as they did yesterday and take that sort of 50-50 play around a Baron, perhaps.
Sure.
Or,
I mean, when they're ahead. If they're behind, I think 50-50
is fine. Razork's going to try and secure himself a scuttle, but Inspired has been everywhere that Razork has been. Didn't feel like a 50-50 when Razork started it.
Well, the thing is, again, Inspired has push bot.
Yep.
So he's like, hey, we're really happy right now. Oh, this is good. I really like this play from Rogue right now because the fact that they got the Rift Herald, we talked about how they wanted to shift their attention down towards the bot side of the map. They're going to get more gold into Handsummer's back pocket. They're going to open up the map more. The Drake is now about to spawn, so they're going to push this wave out, rotate round, secure the Cloud Drake as well. Overall, very clean League of Legends coming out from Rogue, and as you rightly said, Inspired is just everywhere that Razork is, and he's kind of reading him like a book right now.
He really is. A 2,500 gold lead right now for Rogue, and a lot of that sits in the AD carry position. 1.4k ahead for Handsummer, even though that CS is pretty much even. Plates coming to the fore in terms of just how much gold advantage they can give you. Even a gold lead for Larssen in the mid lane just because of that assist in the kill that he got earlier on. And now the map opens up just a little bit. Of course, you don't always see the switch up towards the top lane when there's not a Rift Herald there, but it looks like both Rogue and Misfits have decided AD carries and supports are now going top.
Well, it's for the plates, right?
Yeah.
The idea is to just keep putting more gold into the Aphelios back pocket, very similar to what we saw in game 1 of the day when SK were playing. There are 5 plates available in the top lane. There's 3.5 minutes until the plates fall off. And considering the Summer and VandeR were winning that 2 versus 2 quite comfortably, pretty consistently getting that pressure with the Infinity Edge nearly completed as well, they just want to try and funnel even more gold into him. Meanwhile, Larssen is sitting quite pretty in the mid lane. Having a look at some of his itemization, he's now upgraded the tier into the Archangel Staff. And so when that becomes the completed Seraphs, that's when Orianna really gets very, very scary.
So we saw how good Rek'Sai is at ganking bottom lane when you're playing in blue side. Not so good on top lane. You don't have that same avenue in. There's too many like little areas for the enemy to escape through. Inspired is spending some time up here, but Kobbe and DOS are relatively safe with Razork being in the area, so they can just farm this up underneath the tower.
Well, hook does land. Obviously not going to commit to that one, but the goal here is actually to get control of the enemy jungle rather than focus on the top lane. So when we look at, you know, your statement of Kobbe and DOS feeling pretty safe, yeah, maybe they do, but Razork definitely doesn't, because he's the target right now for Rogue, and they're saying, hey, if you want to clear some of your jungle, we might actually be here to catch you. And so by him going for Raptors right now, there's a risk associated with that, and he has to be pretty careful because he is going to get spotted out. You can see that VandeR's actually making his way over. But instead, Inspired and Larssen are going to invest their time into the bot side river, grab themselves the Scuttle Crab. And obviously this is very early for a Drake because it's not spawning for another 3 minutes.
It's very early for a Drake.
But it's additional gold and it's pretty safe to secure. And of course it gives you more vision in the river. So everything's sitting quite pretty for Rogue right now. When you think about next steps, you're looking at the plates to fall. Again, you kind of have your eyes on mid and top, which will end up falling for either side. Misfits, they're not too upset right now. They're quite comfortable scaling. They know they have a scaling advantage in the form of the Vladimir. But what I think is really interesting about this meta is it's never quite clear-cut as to who scales better than who.
Okay.
I think in some instances it can be, because one of the easiest ways to like look at jungle, I think Rek'Sai is going to be harder to execute later into the game relative to a Jarvan is. So you could argue, well, Misfits have more tools later into the game to fight better.
Sure.
But I think that because of the way in which this game is so teamfight focused, execution on teamfights is very important. And so when people have that core itemization ready, that is when it's kind of the go button, and it all comes down to execution. What's your positioning? How did you set up your waves to be able to challenge these objectives? And what I think Rogue had showcased after day 1 was that they play a very clean, patient game, whereas Misfits is a lot more willing to be a little bit more gung-ho. The moment they hit their item spikes, they're just ready to fight. And of course, those item spikes have not come through yet, but they're steadily on their way. In the meantime, Rogue are trying to take advantage of that. With the Seraphs now completed, 14 minutes already done for Larssen.
I mean, he did have it at like
I mean, that's true. That is very true. But that is a very fast Seraphs for sure. You can see Misfits have their eyes set on mid lane, and man, I think a lot of props needs to go to Inspired this game.
He's had such a good
I think
game.
his vision control has been fantastic. I think he's tracked Razork extremely well. I think that every play that Razork has tried to make, he has just been there to counter it and protect. So props to Inspired, because I think he's doing a great job so far.
He really has. Summer here, step forward, and this is why Thresh is so good, right? Like, he both protect and he attack.
That's true.
And that's so powerful as a pick, and is one of the few real blind pickable supports at the moment. VandeR there just giving Summer a little bit more safety. Summer now finished the Infinity Edge at the 15-minute mark, and that dragon that we were a little bit early for earlier on is now up in 45 seconds time. No team really focused on the bottom side right now. They're looking to try and take down this tower. But I wonder if we'll see Inspired. Well, he's going to start up the Rift Herald instead of going down towards Dragon, trying to get the second one of the game for Rogue. They know they are just that little bit stronger than Misfits right now. Oh. Razork? No, like, that doesn't even deserve to be cast. What, they flashed in mid lane as well? What on earth is going on? VandeR's gonna land a hook. Here's Inspired, kills Febiven in the mid lane. Ignite goes down, and Kobbe is gonna fall. Summer underneath the tower. Dodges away from the final Mystic shot, and Rogue just open up both barrels straight away. I mean, Razork flashed into his death. And then Rogue were like, okay, we'll take 3 kills for that.
So Rogue just kicked this game into like 6th gear. I was not expecting that series of events to occur, but they have just ballooned their gold lead to about 4K. When we get the replay, let's try and talk about some of the decision-making that was going on here, because for Razork, I feel like there wasn't a huge amount of it. Like, let's just... No, but seriously, think about it. Rogue is right now doing the Rift Herald, which means it's very easy for Inspired to show up. But Febiven also can't follow this because there's a minion wave in his way.
He doesn't have mana either.
He doesn't have enough mana to be able to follow up on that play, so Razork commits his whole flash to trying to secure that play, and then, of course, that doesn't get interrupted because during the ultimate, you are unstoppable. Yeah. Meanwhile, on the top lane, a good hook lands from VandeR once again. Summer just flashes in, gets a bunch of health back from the heal as well, and then the shield from the Lantern just comes back in time to be able to protect him as well. Like, that whole sequence of events came about as Razork tried to force that play in mid, and then opportunities just kind of opened themselves up for Rogue across the board. They didn't get the Rift Herald, but that doesn't matter. They're going to get themselves the 3rd Drake of the game. And yeah, very surprising play coming out from Razork.
I mean, it's one of those, you have to praise Rogue for taking the opportunity that was presented to them, right? Like, you have to make the best of those opportunities.
I mean, I feel like it's also my responsibility.
Oh, no.
We
all agree Razork did something very strange there, right? That was very debatable.
I mean, again, the most context I think I can offer is that he felt the need to try and force something.
Yeah.
And he thought that he could catch Orianna off guard. Like, you know, maybe he thinks, okay, if Inspired is on Rift Herald, he won't be able to collapse in time, which means we can just burst him out. But I don't think that Azir has the kind of damage to just follow that up and immediately one-shot. So yeah, I think it was overforced, and it definitely didn't work out in his favor.
What I did like, though, is Summer and VandeR, knowing Razork was mid, then immediately went aggressive in the top lane. They knew they couldn't get counter-ganked. They knew they couldn't get ganked by the Jarvan, and so they were like, okay, we can win this 2v2. We are stronger right now, and they went for that aggressive play. And because of that, Rogue are now 4,000 gold in the lead. They have 3 dragons and 4 minutes before the Mountain Soul. Mountain Soul, not the best soul, in my opinion, but an extra shield on Summer, an extra little bit of resistance to the poke that comes out from Misfits is always going to help. Here we go. VandeR with the Shirelli is looking for Kobbe, flashes forward. There's the play, and Kobbe is locked up. Welcome back to the LEC. 7-1 now for Rogue. As they are, well, Razork, okay, he might just be dead here as well. He goes back in with the Cataclysm, but Febiven can't get the soldiers down, can't get the damage down onto Larssen, who's having a pretty stellar performance on this Orianna, and Rogue are just, oh, they're taking everything away from Misfits right now. I feel sorry for Dan. He's been a side lane while all of this has been happening, trying to deal with a pirate. And although he now has the Rabadon's Death Cap complete, he's going to have to start having an impact on the other 2 lanes.
I mean, so when I think about this from Rogue's perspective, wait, is he just going to kill him?
Nah, he doesn't have Crescendo. The Gravitum Moonlight Vigil isn't enough.
Fair. But, like, that was damn close.
Oh, yeah. If he had like an Inferno or any other gun, I think he kills him.
Maybe. Wow. All right, well, my takeaway from this is, and again, it's only the 2nd game of the split,
sure.
But when I came into this split, I was like, I need to see some level of adaptation from Rogue, because if they play the same way that they did last split, which in my opinion was just a slightly worse version of Origin, then they're never going to be much more than that. But I think that what we're seeing in this game is a willingness to take gambles. And they're not like 50-50 gambles, they are like 70-30 gambles. Of course, Summer's dive could have resulted in his death, giving kills over, but he executed upon it so well that they were able to walk away with a kill. The fact that they dive Febiven in the mid lane, I feel like is a big confidence play. And I think this I don't know if it's risk-taking, but this level of confidence from Rogue is something that I think we didn't get a lot of last split, but I think is refreshing to see moving into this split.
I also think it's something we see in the teams that are consistently near the top of the table. Like Fnatic and G2, there are so many times I can look back and be like, that's a bit brave from Hylissang, that's a bit brave from Whippo, that's a bit brave from Perkz, and they go for these plays that perhaps aren't as an assured thing as you would like if you're watching it from the sidelines. But yeah, good stuff from Rogue so far. And with 2 minutes on, the Dragon Inspired is going to get control of this area once again. Is having a phenomenal performance on the Rek'Sai and is helping Rogue just take total control of this game. It's going to be a long walk back for Misfits if they're going to be able to get anything out of this one.
So we can see the deep vision setup in the bot side of the map. Rogue setting up very well for the Dragon Soul. The Herald has to get used top because right now there's nowhere else to use it. Thank you, observers, for highlighting the amount of control Misfits have over the map right now, which is very little. Misfits' concern is, okay, we might just give up Mountain Soul, and then instead make sure that we have control around Baron so that we can threaten this objective when they actually start it, which I think is not a terrible gamble.
Jump the wall. They're going to do it.
Yeah, and I think this isn't the worst, but I think it's a little early, personally. But when they know that Aphelios is bot and he can't rotate down, this is actually not a terrible plan. The thing is, Rogue are they aware?
Yeah, they are. Farsight Alteration went into the pit.
Okay, so they definitely know. Yeah, Misfits are going to have to disengage. So the downside of this is now Summer has a free path towards that tier 3 tower in the bot lane, but Misfits heading back to it. Yeah. So again, I like this from Misfits because I think it's like it's something that they have to do, but Larssen, he's aware that something's happening.
Razork has no HP, a shockwave, a knockup, anything is going to take him down as Larssen positions off towards the top side of this. Larssen has the flank, they don't know he's there, he only hits the shockwave onto one, it's Febiven, is going to push forward, but Larsen's already killed the jungler and Razork is down. And here comes Summer, opens up with a Moonlight Vigil, has to flash across the wall as he is in the Hemo Plague, and Kobbe is looking for that final shot. It will go to DanDan as the Hemo Plague pops. So far, a 1 for 2 in favor of Rogue, but they didn't manage to take down the inhibitor tower in the bottom lane. So although Misfits were the ones to start the Baron, although Misfits were the ones that were caught on the Baron, they kind of get out unscathed.
Well, they don't, because they're going to lose the
Mountain Dragon, yep.
Yeah, yeah, they should definitely lose it.
I mean, they should definitely, but right now, Inspired is all by his lonesome.
He is by himself, but the TP is coming through. Misfits getting baited into a trap right now.
Kobbe is standing off towards the side. Dos has to flash away. Larssen doesn't have the shockwave yet, but it's almost off cooldown. DanDan is chasing Razork out. He's trying to keep his team in this, trying to keep their hopes alive. Here comes the TP from Misfits, and they're going to fight for this one again.
Oh, look at
Larssen, there's the hook! Razork straight into the trap. He jumps in with the Cataclysm, but there's no one there for the follow-up. There's no damage there. Febiven unable to get in. And now it's a 4v5 in favor. Oh, VandeR once again with the hook. Finn's gonna just land a parlay, but it's a 4v5 in favor of Rogue. And this Mountain Soul is their just reward.
Great patience from Rogue there. They recognized the Misfits would look to come and contest this Mountain Soul. They didn't want to try and gamble the Baron once again. But they ended up walking into a trap, just lying in wait from Rogue. So we're going to go all the way back to the Baron. You can see that Razork just doesn't have the HP to tank this one up. Dos can't tank it up either. So while they come very close to securing it, the flank from Larssen comes around. He buys time and does a lot of damage onto Febiven, securing that kill onto Razork while also surviving. The TP comes through from DanDan. You think at this point maybe Misfits can actually swing the fight in their favor, but unfortunately for Misfits, they don't have the HP bars. They're forced to disengage. And then we transition over to the Drake fight, where you can see that Inspired thinks he can solo it, but 3 members of Misfits say, oh no, we're going to stop this. But then we see Larssen come in with the TP flank himself. This was the deep vision that they invested only like 4 minutes ago because they wanted to secure that Drake play. And then Rogue is sitting here saying, okay, we'll bait this one out. They have no vision. The Farsight comes through, but it's a little too late. And Razork walks into the trap of Rogue.
It's the second time Rogue have set up a trap like that. Yesterday on the Corki, remember Larssen using the package over the wall, just sitting around a corner, making sure they cleared out their vision. And then just catching at least one player out. Mountain Soul in favor of Rogue. Here goes Razork once again. The Lantern's there. He goes in with the Cataclysm, but the hook's going to land on DanDan. True Shot Barrage really doesn't do too much, and DanDan is dead before he can even get into the battle. 2 kills quickly over to Rogue. 13-2 is the scoreline. A 9,500 gold lead, and VandeR says it best. It's GG well played.
I love these aggressive plays coming out from Rogue. They're not slowing the game down. They know that they are so much stronger than their opponents, and they keep forcing these fights. This is now going to convert into a Baron for Rogue. Misfits looking for a steal, but they're not going to get anywhere close. Beautiful execution, 13-2 on the board, 11k gold is their advantage. Rogue looking very clean. Let's take a look back at this replay once more. Rogue just trying to push up the mid lane because the next play for Rogue is of course that Baron. Misfits trying to find a pick onto Summer. Razork patiently waits for him to take the lantern so that he can land his ultimate, but Febiven isn't in position to follow up. DanDan gets one shot before he can even do anything, and while the idea was good for Misfits, they just are not strong enough to be able to follow through. And with the gold disadvantage that they find themselves in, this game is pretty much done and dusted. Rogue have their eyes set now on the base of Misfits.
Looks like they might move up towards the top side, but once again we see the power of Thresh there. Razork had to hold onto his ultimate until the lantern was clicked, and then by that point he is so far away from the rest of his team because the Dark Passage gets Summer just miles away from anyone on Misfits. Here comes the push in the top lane. 2 cannon minions available for Rogue, and that inhibitor tower is going to fall short with it goes down, and now Misfits trying to defend, trying to find some semblance of life in this game, but they're going to lose the top in here. Rogue willing just to back away.
So notice how, in this instance, compared to last game, Rogue didn't need to set up their other waves because they recognize how much stronger they are and how weak the wave clear is for Misfits at this point in the game, that they can actually just barrel down one lane and secure themselves an inhibitor. Now that that's going to start spawning super minions, they can actually address the other two, and I'd like to see Finn actually go towards bot lane, or maybe even use his ultimate to actually just clear out that wave, but instead they're just going to keep with this barrel approach where they just group push, but I think this tower should be a little bit harder to secure.
You say that, Betty, it's already down to about a 10th HP. It goes down. Summer is a monster right now. Infinity Edge, Runans, and the Death Stance has been complete. And really, you're only tickling him. That's the second inhibitor. The wave in the bottom lane is a fair way away, sitting where the tier 2 usually would.
Their plan was, okay, we'll just slow push all the waves, and then we can just rotate to each one and just barrel down. This is another effective way of using a Baron, but this is more about just throwing your coin bag around and just showcasing how
they're slapping them with their wallets, Betty. That's what's happening right here. If they had a white glove, they'd be taking it out and hitting them in the face. But Rogue just too strong right now, and Misfits looking down to a second defeat in 2 days. Yesterday against Fnatic, they put on an incredible performance, but today against Rogue, they've truly just been outclassed and outmanned on the day. In third inhibitor tower down to about half HP. And it will fall in just a moment's time. And now the inhibitor is the target. Double super minions pushing in that top lane already on those Nexus turrets. 3 inhibs down. Now, Misfits were in this position yesterday, and Fnatic still won the game, Vedius. So I'm not going to call it yet, but I think we can say Rogue have about a 99% chance of winning this game.
Yeah, the question is, will they end it now or will they disengage? The Baron ends in 10 seconds. I think they can end it now, and I want to see them do so. Here we go, final engage.
Razork jumps in, gets the Cataclysm on a couple, and here goes Febiven, looking for the shuffle back. They're going to get the Hemo plate down as well, but the Shockwave lands, and Doss is already dead. Febiven's already dead. Dan's still alive, but he's not going to be for much longer. Everyone on Rogue survives, and Kobbe can just look as his Nexus towers are razed to the ground. Rogue with a very impressive performance here. I'm going to go 2-0 so far in week 1 as they defeat Misfits and look for a little bit of dessert as they try and take Kobbe on the Nexus.
Overall, once again, another clean game from our teams here in Europe. Rogue 17-2 was the scoreline. Pre-30-minute win as well.
I'm liking the pace. I'm liking the pace.
It just goes to show what you can do when you get given early game options. True. And like, I kind of want to go all the way back to the draft and talk about this Thresh, man. Why did we not see a greater priority on the Thresh?
So good.
Like, think about what the Thresh did for them consistently throughout the game. So many great hooks land. And then, of course, huge props to Inspired. I think that his pretty much whole play during the early game, his vision control, his pathing, his response, his reaction, like, everything was flawless. So I'm really optimistic about Rogue based on what we've seen over the last 2 days. We get to see them again tomorrow because, of course, this week in the LEC, it is a super week. So 3 days of LEC gameplay stacked up and ready to go. And you know, based on what we've seen from Schalke, Rogue on track to go 3-0 on this week. But we'll have to wait and see.
We will, but for now, you know what you guys can vote on? It's Kia Player of the Game at LEC on Twitter. Inspired, Larssen, and VandeR are your options. I know who you should pick, but I'm not going to tell you. Okay, make your own minds up. It's Inspired. In a few minutes, Laure checks in with Inspired and Quickshot and End to take a look at Rogue's win. Inspired.
is my creed. The boots that make me faster. The items that make me stronger. The potions that I drink. I get the best to be more powerful, so my champion rises to the top. But all this leveling up means nothing if I don't level up myself. It's the healthy potions I drink in real life that make me stronger. Because you can only rule the game when you realize you are your most important champion. To play like a pro, eat like a pro.
Welcome back to the LEC, everyone. Rogue just won their second game of the split, and I have Inspired with me to talk about the game. Thank you very much for joining me, Inspired.
Thank you. Hello.
That was a very impressive game. I mean, especially coming from you, but we'll talk about that a bit later. But I want to know, tell me about the early game plan from the 5-man move at the beginning of the game to the early game you unlocked as the maestro of the game.
The level 1 plan was mostly on VandeR. He said that supports really like to use the ward in lane level 1 and then base for sweeper. So we decided to give it a chance and try to kill Karma if she wants to use this. And other than that, our early game obviously was to gank bot lane. You could see it from the draft. We picked Rek'Sai next to the Thresh, so it's a really good gank setup. So our goal in early was just to make Aphelios win his lane and then snowball for Drakes and swap for Herald with him. Mostly play for bot lane.
All right, and you did it perfectly here, but I still want to highlight the fact that we're on a late-game scaling meta in a way, and there's still a comeback potential, even though sometimes you crush teams. So how did you manage to keep the edge you had and lock the game in your advantage in the end?
It's not really like we didn't scale well. We had the Gangplank, Orianna, and Aphelios. All of those champs are scaling really well. Yeah. And I think the scaling meta is not necessary that you always win if you outscale, because you have to play really well in the late game team fights with all of those champions. So I think it's not all about scaling. I think mechanics is play a lot in the late game team fights.
Mechanics, communication, everything, and all of this to say that you were the player of the game here, so you performed really well with this Rek'Sai here. So are you happy about the performance you had?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. I think enemies gave us a lot of room to play with. They made a lot of mistakes, so the game was way easier for us to play. But I think we still played pretty decent.
Yeah, you did. You were the better team in the end. And you mentioned the fact that you wanted to push and help the bot lane to set up Aphelios and give him an advantage. We'll be talking about the bot lane in 2 minutes with VandeR and Quickshot. So is there any praise you want to give your bot lane before I send it over to them?
Well, I think they play really well. They even dove enemy bot lane 2v2 on top while we were fighting mid. So I think they were also a better bot lane, even though I was helping them.
Better bot lane indeed. Thank you very much, Inspired, for the interview. And we're going to send it over right now to Quickshot and VandeR for the post-game breakdown.
Thank you so much, Laure. That was a fantastic interview. And thank you to Inspired. Yes, we are going to talk about their 2v2 top in just a moment. Rogue were able to take down Misfits. They're 2-0 on the Summer Split so far. And I'm going to ask Ender to help explain something to me. The reason for that, viewers at home don't really get to pick Ender's brain backstage while the games are going on. And I'm basically going to replicate what happened during this game. Let's start with picks and bans. Now, Ender, I want you to explain to me what you liked about the draft, what you were expecting to happen as we saw the draft play out.
Okay, well, looking at both of these drafts, they seemed fairly similar across the board. You look in each of the lanes and there's a lot of different scaling options. And then in the jungle role, you have two champions, the Rek'Sai and the Jarvan, that are looking to gank early on. But the pivotal difference, I feel, between these two drafts is the support position. On Misfits side, you have the Karma that's looking to buff up her Ezreal, scale into the later stages of the game. With Rogue, though, you have the Thresh that's there to make plays and force plays, and it made it much easier for Inspired to play the early game.
Yeah, it didn't help that despite the champion, the first replays we're going to show you is DOS getting caught out, not being in the right place at the right time. This just complicates matters when you've already got this difference in playstyle and then you concede these easy deaths.
Yeah, so this is just a bit unfortunate here. You don't always see teams go for the 5-stack in bot lane, but DOS clearly not expecting it. He didn't need to flash there. He was going to die regardless, but this play right here, it's a good timing play with VandeR, knowing Inspired is coming around from the other side. But I am positive if DOS flashes that hook, he's going to get out there. Inspired was not close enough to be able to follow up onto him, so he wasn't able to locate the flash key. And with 2 quick kills, all of a sudden you're looking at, well, when both teams are trying to scale, if one team has 1k bonus gold, they're probably going to be in a better spot.
Now, the reason I specifically want you to teach me in the same way that you're conversing with the viewers is that at this point I'm looking at Inspired's the game changer, Inspired's the man, and you very politely were just like, yeah, but Trev, it's support difference.
Yes.
Tell me why.
So look, the game was both jungle and support difference. I'll give you that. But in the bot lane in particular, VandeR did so much work. You saw it starting off that play in the bot lane right there. But also, there's this crazy 2v2 in the top lane where Rogue go for this 2 versus 2 dive. It was really sick to see. And it starts off, right, with DOS. He's up here. He doesn't necessarily see. Now he knows VandeR is coming. What happened? Oh, he walks into the hook. VandeR's here to start things off. And it's good. You get the flash out. But then Hans Sama turns thing around, goes under the tower. Look at this juke back. Under the tower. Oh my
I saw that
God.
twice and
It's
I missed
insane.
the Mystic shot.
Because here's the thing, he has to start running into the Mystic shot because the tower aggro is still on him. So he has to run out of turret range, which puts him towards Mystic shot, then has a half-second window where he can click back underneath the tower because there's 1 minion left, and he's able to do that to dodge the Q and live with 2 HP.
Unbelievable. Now look, VandeR then went on to land hook after hook after hook and set the team up for success. I think Rogue were destined to win based on how that early game played out and honestly just the caliber of the players. But what's the takeaway here then from the Misfits perspective as they showed a fantastic game yesterday and today fell flat on their faces?
I mean, honestly, it looked like they were tilted, right?
Yeah.
Like DOS constantly getting pummeled by these hooks, and Razork had a miserable game. I'm not going to hold any punches on that because he had such a good spring split, but starting with the mid lane gank where he's diving underneath a tower when his mid laner
he was
doesn't have any
donating.
mana.
He was donating his
It was
life.
crazy, and it looked nothing like the Misfits we saw in yesterday's game. So they need a mental reset after that, turnaround loss yesterday and after this performance.
Fnatic tilted them so hard they lost to Rogue today. Look, our next matchup is going to be Exile Esports taking on Mad Lions. Two teams looking to bounce back after a tough day one. Ender, thank you for the breakdown, and everyone home. We'll see you after the break. That was awesome. Thank you.